Today's podcast is brought to you by Jesse Edgar, a.k.a. the OK Computer Guy. Jesse's based right here in Oklahoma City and is the only place you're going to find computer repair for as low as $40. It's no coincidence that Jesse's got a 5-star rating on Google. He's an avid listener to this podcast, so you know he's easy to talk to. He'll work with whatever it is that you need. Go like his Facebook page today at facebook.com/OKComputerGuy, where he's always doing contests and giveaways that you will not want to miss out on. So give Jesse a call today at 405-326-4011.
You're listening to Thunderheads, a podcast for Thunder fans by Thunder fans.
Welcome to Thunderheads. If you're tuning in to YouTube Live, we are psyched to have you. It's been a bit.
It's been a while.
12 days, if I'm not mistaken. Right. I am Brandon Soul, joined by the Jacob Man. Just no...
Trying it out, huh?
But
no words.
Yeah, no words.
I'm calculated.
Okay. Okay. It's a good pod to be calculated on because, and I'll let you guys know.
Many numbers. Doctor's
in the house. It's Rob Larson.
Yes, Doctor.
Oh, no. We're not doing this, right? Like everyone does, just limping in. Dr. Stormy Jason Lewis.
Yes, sir.
All right, today we're going to take a look at what the Thunder's roster might look like in different scenarios on opening night. I know we're looking ahead, but, there's nothing else going on right now. If OKC is close to a rebuild, how to fill Jerami Grant's place if he does leave in free agency, and much, much more. But first, let's talk a little NBA.
Let's do that.
I'm just going to start off with this. Are you guys enjoying these playoffs?
I am not.
No.
Agreed. I am not.
So is it because of the lack of
fun,
good games? Is it because the Thunder are out? Is it because everything seems like a foregone conclusion?
That's exactly what it is. I mean, whenever you can predict it at the beginning of the year, obviously Houston is a really good story. Like the fact that they were able to kind of get it together, had a great regular season. But, I mean, before the season started, you knew how this was going to go. And so it sucks that it's playing out that way. I mean, it would be interesting if, like, Hayward and Kyrie were healthy. Like, maybe the East would be a little bit more fun.
And maybe
it would matter a little bit
And maybe
more.
you might think the Celtics could challenge the Warriors if they end up winning the series.
I got a little hope for them. That's like the only thing I have in these playoffs is a little hope for the Celtics.
Do you think the Celtics, even if they beat Cleveland,
they're going to get destroyed.
They'll probably get destroyed, right?
It's very sad.
Can they get a game on
the
the
Western
Warriors?
Conference Finals is the finals to
Right.
me. Like, that's how I view it.
And that's crazy, too, to say, because sometimes when you're watching this Warriors-Rockets series, the discrepancy between the two teams, as far as when they're at their best, is massive.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Kevin
They
Durant
just got blown out by a record number last night.
Yeah.
Houston Rockets have never lost by more in a playoff series than they did last night.
And here's something for you. There hasn't been a game decided by single digits in the playoffs since May 9th.
Yeah.
Whew. Did you guys watch that game?
No.
No one did.
I watched a little bit of the second half.
Because I was
it was
at
a blowout by then.
I was at a concert and checked the score afterwards. It was like, holy goddamn, what happened?
It seems to be the way things are going right now. And, like, home court has been huge for a lot of teams. And I'm with you, man. These playoffs haven't been – the first round was the best round.
Yeah.
That's not good. I mean, maybe it is. It's nice to have the first round be good, but historically, the first round's always – it's always like, well, we know who's going to win the first round.
It ramps up. That's what you want it to do, is to ramp up.
Right. And
it's not. It's the literal opposite progression of the product that the NBA wants to put out. Because when your best, most competitive, lengthy series all occur against teams that with the Jazz and the Pelicans, and I mean, you're just at the end. You're like you said. It's. I mean, for me, like the East. I don't like this Eastern series because I feel like it's between two teams that really shouldn't on paper be there.
Yeah.
Which for the Celtics is fun, and for the Cavs it's just demoralizing. I feel I don't give a crap, and I still feel just terrible watching them. And then for the West, you're watching the inevitability. I mean, I could totally be wrong, but I'm just...
Yeah, maybe the Rockets come back and win and make us all look like fools, but it doesn't really feel...
Yeah.
Game 4 is extremely important. I feel like if the Rockets lose Game 4...
It's done.
Yeah, that's going to be it.
Rockets aren't winning Game 4.
I give them a decent shot. I would still pick the Warriors, but I think the Rockets have a decent shot. But even if the Rockets do, I still think it ends in 6.
Yeah.
Like...
Didn't Andre Iguodala get a knee contusion?
He's fine, apparently.
Doubtful, right? Oh,
Nah, it
he's
came back
fine.
clear.
Apparently he's fine.
Well,
It's a good
But
try.
once
there goes that.
Yeah.
Once Curry gets going, though, I mean, what are you gonna do if you're the Rockets? When I watch Game 1 and you see the way the Rockets play, and everyone knows obviously they're ISO heavy. They play like the Thunder, but a lot better than the Thunder at what they do because you have Harden, you have Chris Paul, guys that are more efficient in the ISO than the guys on the Thunder. But when you play like that against the Warriors, and that's how you've been playing all season long,
Yeah.
I just can't see. I mean, you gotta figure out other avenues, and that team just does not have other guys. You would have to have Eric Gordon have the series of his life, I think.
All of them.
Well, yeah.
Everybody.
Like, Chris Paul struggled.
Chris Paul.
You can't have, as the Rockets, you can't have, Chris Paul cannot do that. He had, I think, 3 points or something in the first half. You just, that can't happen because the other team is going to score. They're going to score a bunch of points,
Right.
and really, it's going to be really easy for them. And so whenever you need somebody else besides Harden to step up, and it has to be, first, it just has to be Chris Paul. He has to be able to control the game. And I don't know. And the Rockets, we're going to talk about what the future looks like for the Thunder, but the Rockets, I mean, what's going to happen with Clint Capella after this year?
Don't you think they're going to do everything to keep him, though?
will
He's
have
restricted.
to. Yeah, they'll do everything to keep him, but it's still you still have to fill out the roster as well.
Yeah.
So,
And you saw what they did this year at the beginning of the year. They filled out their roster with a bunch of no-names that no one knew who they are. And
Yeah.
they're sitting at the end of the bench right now, and they have a very short bench.
Yeah. Well, and then also you think about what's their mindset while they're trying to just keep the current core together if they only take a game in this series and they lose in 5.
But isn't that what's messed up about this entire situation? Is that they have to examine themselves because the Warriors are a thing.
Right.
Because Kevin Durant decided to go to Golden State,
Yeah.
there's nothing anyone can do anymore.
he wanted the tough road.
Yeah.
He wanted the tough road, and he's got to work for these championships, man.
It's true, and I that Kevin Durant has, it's coming from us as the Thunder podcast. It's going to sound whiny regardless, unless you're a Thunder fan listening to us. If you're not, you're going to think we're whining. But a lot of people would agree with us, even not Thunder fans. The way things went down, him going there and just completely shifting the power.
100%.
This league is superstar driven. Kevin Durant can carry a team to the playoffs that has a bunch of nobodies on it.
I don't know.
He can, man. He did it in whatever year he won the MVP in. He did it. He had his best year of his career probably that year. And now you put that guy on a team that won 73 games. Dude, come on.
Yeah. A team that just beat him. I mean, just the mentality and just like you said, the parity. It's just tough. I honestly, objectively, I really just think it's not just a Thunder fan thing. Most people that watch the NBA, no one thinks he committed a crime. No one thinks that he...
Obviously, it was his right.
Yeah.
Right, it's his
He can
right
do
to
whatever
do
he
it.
wants, but
But it was a shit move. I mean, it was just
kind of
it
ruined
was.
it just kind of ruined everything for everyone.
Because here's
That's
the
all
thing,
did.
it was
It's
a unicorn situation. Because for Golden State to have Steph Curry on the contract they had him on when they signed KD, for them to have Clay and Draymond to emerge the stars that they became. I mean, Draymond was a second round pick.
Yep.
And then Clay was really late, or maybe
No, he was a high pick, but
either way,
wasn't expected to be what he is.
the salary to have them and Iguodala and all of this happening, it wasn't supposed to happen. And
Everything
so
fell in.
it really
I mean,
did.
They deserve a lot of credit.
no one
doubt.
expected KD to be such a bitch. No one expected.
Everything went right for the Warriors, and honestly, everything for the Thunder has gone pretty wrong in recent years. And not to get ahead of ourselves, but that might be my biggest hope in Paul George staying, is the fact that how everything has gone against the Thunder.
Yeah.
Something's got to go right, man. I mean, you can say that Westbrook re-signing is the thing that went right, but everyone
that was a
kind of
pretty big-
expected to, though.
that was a
Everyone
pretty
kind of
big deal.
expected him to, but it didn't shift anything. It just kept the team the same as it was. You know, it's not.
It would be nice if we got one freaking bone thrown our way.
Yeah, it would be. Nice.
Please,
No one
basketball gods.
cares. Here's a question though: is there a point that the Warriors get bored?
Probably not.
They get sick of just kind of I mean, right now, like you said, Rob, this is supposed to be the most exciting time of the NBA season. You know, you go back before KD went to Golden State, it was.
Yeah.
That series between the Thunder and the Warriors was awesome. I'm sure if we weren't all stressing the hell out because we had, interest in the series,
Right.
our well-being depended on the result in the
Right.
games. If we could have just watched it as fans, that would have been
It was
That was an
incredible.
incredible series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
I
was so
can't-
good.
What happened on the other side? I think it was the East, so and LeBron was running through it.
Nobody cared.
But still,
about
things were better in the West. But
I think more so than like the Warriors kind of just getting bored. I think you have like, at what point does the NBA change some kind of structure to try and make it to where, one, that it doesn't that scenario just doesn't happen again, and two, to try and figure out a way to make it more difficult on them to keep those four guys together. Like, I don't know what that is or what that would how that would be accomplished, but there's no way the NBA is happy with the Warriors winning the next however many championships.
the only
There's
thing
no
is
way,
you can
yeah.
make the argument though to say, well, ratings are higher than they've ever been.
Yeah.
Across the season,
Yeah,
which
like the league's doing so well.
But you didn't have the Warriors winning 72 games this year. You had whenever you have other, like you had the 76ers were more exciting this year.
I'm with you.
It's another
Yeah.
team. Like,
Yeah, like having competition is great, but I feel like it'd be weird if they did something to like break them up.
I don't
as
know
a-
what you
as
can
a
do.
pro-
well, not,
Yeah,
not
they
to say
made
like,
their
well, we're
bed.
just gonna take Clay and we're gonna,
Yeah,
I
like-
mean, you don't do
Yeah,
that.
like
but I'm
something
just,
to like foster better competition, maybe. I don't know.
And
something.
if
It's
you
just-
if even if they did have the best ratings they've ever had this season, maybe if you're looking at long-term projections and you're talking about Klay Thompson saying, "I'm willing to take a pay cut to stay here," and you look at all these things and you're like, "Man,
Like-
eventually fans are going to get bored with it too." You would think, right?
that's the
Well,
that's the
I
point.
mean,
If
you
we're like-
think that, but then you look at the teams that Kobe was on, and you look at the teams that Michael Jordan was
But
on in the
yeah.
run that they
Yeah.
had.
not this kind of. They didn't win 72 regular season games.
But
and
even then,
add,
you can make the argument though that even then they didn't cap that off with a title, and so
that's
Jordan,
the point.
Jordan did, right?
That's
No, he's just talking about the Warriors.
to me
Oh.
though.
You're saying his what they edge it by like a win. What was
Yeah.
his record?
To me though, that's the point. Is that like whenever Brandon says like if ratings, I don't know what the ratings are, but let's say the ratings are up throughout the regular season. Like you did have the Warriors step back. You know,
Yeah.
you had the Rockets who
Yeah.
won more games, won the most games in the regular season, and so I think that sort of leads to more interest whenever you have other teams. But let's say that the Warriors next season win 68 games,
Yeah.
and then run through the playoffs.
Well, that's what
again,
it's
like-
about. It's the playoffs because last year the Warriors go 16-2 in the playoffs, only lose one game in the NBA Finals.
Right.
This year they've lost one game. Have they lost one game in the?
They lost to the Pelicans once.
and that's it, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, because they swept the Spurs.
well, they
lost
lost-
and then
lost
the
to the
Rockets.
Rockets.
So they've
That
lost
too.
twice. And it wouldn't be surprising if they sweep either team they play.
No,
Maybe.
if they went out, I would be. I mean, it's not an
Yeah.
unreasonable prediction.
Yeah.
so,
and that's-
so when you go back and you talk about those Jordan teams that dominated,
He struggled.
you know, the Lakers had 1 year. I think they went 16-1 in the playoffs or whatever. 1 year, one season of that. But Jordan, yeah, he had the Patrick Ewings and the guys that took him to 6 and 7. Reggie
Yeah.
Miller
Right,
teams.
okay, I get you.
That's the only thing there. That,
Yeah, it's like there needs
to
to be
fight harder.
There needs to be like that sense of competition at least to make it feel like they're like struggling at all.
Like you might have thought and known in your heart, like, man, Jordan's gonna win it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you see, hey, this series is 2-2,
And he's like
this
being
series
he's,
is 3-2.
He's like being taken to the brink. It was like I mean it was like what you're talking about, the OKC Warrior like versus Warriors series. Like that was both teams like really getting to that place. And those are awesome. Like if you can get more of that, great.
Well,
like
let
it's
me-
going to stay.
Let me pose two things. One, just in addressing your initial question, I don't think they get bored because I don't think the types of people that would get bored would ever agree to join forces the way that they did. I don't think someone who wants to lead their own team or
Well, he clearly doesn't want to do that.
well, right, and neither did Steph. I mean, really, KD got the brunt of that, but really, Steph gave his team away, and I'm not necessarily faulting him for that because obviously, if Kevin Durant wants to come to your team, you do that. But also, you know, it's definitely a mutual like we can't win. I mean, that was part of the pitch. How many titles can we win by
together.
ourselves, and you by yourself? How many could we win together? So I don't think they're. I think this is what they expected. I think that this is exactly what they want. My question is, do you guys think realistically with the payroll? I mean, the payroll now is coming to a point where they're going to have some questions, just like the Thunder are. Do you think that they still put out the same roster that they're putting out this season, next season, and the season after? Because I don't know that they can.
I think it's going to be easy for them because those guys are so willing to sack. Like they've all made so much money at this point that they're fine and they just want to keep winning championships. Like they've all agreed on that, and they're like,
Steph is locked up for in.
yeah, and he's gonna make his
monster
money,
contract.
and KD's probably gonna try to he's probably gonna take a max.
He did
might
say
take
that
a
he
little-
didn't want
a
to
little
take
less,
the
but-
same cut that he has, but if Klay Thompson's going to take the cut, Draymond Green's going to take the cut.
Yeah.
It is an interesting question,
Yeah.
but then you look at this year and when you're like, well, they basically kept their core guys. Guys like Livingston are having a blast.
Yeah.
Might just take the minimum to just keep doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
Guys like Iguodala, as his continued as his career continues, and he
Like
can kind of
what-
just rest during the season and turn it
Yeah,
on
like
in the playoffs or whatever.
What better situation could they ever get themselves in?
Yeah, and then sign a bunch of veterans that are still good,
Yeah.
still can play, and are dying to get a ring.
Yep.
That's what they're gonna do.
The problem though, that because you're always gonna have those guys that will say, yeah, I'll go. It looks fun,
And they're good
right?
players.
They're running all over the place. They're
Yeah.
draining threes. I mean, it looks like fun. So
I got it.
there will never be a difficult time to fill out that roster, which sucks.
How can we trick Joe Lacob into, or their not their owner, their GM guy, into taking Melo? That tears it all apart.
So
They
if
seem to know what they're doing.
they want to
so.
say we can do anything, we can do anything. Send him over here. We'll win with
be like,
Melo.
you're so full of hubris.
Challenge accepted.
that
I
you
like
think
it.
You, can
You
do
say,
it. Yeah.
see if you can do this.
Yeah.
You
Y'all
think you're so
scared?
good,
Yeah.
Mr. Kerr?
Yeah, let's see
It
how
starts
good
with a
you
KD too, because you gotta subliminally like egg him on. Like KD could never win with Carmelo, and KD's like, they're saying I can't win with Melo. It's like, yeah, I don't think you can. He's like, I can. Get somebody on the phone.
But the problem is if they do, it's the saddest thing.
I'm willing to be. I'm already sad.
That's true. Good
I'm
point.
willing to be more
I
sad.
don't know if I can be more
I
sad,
did see
so.
a good point. I can't remember who said it. What they said. Serious question. Did KD going to the Warriors kind of kill the fun that they actually were? Like, obviously, they were so good, and we hated them just as rivals then, even when KD was on the Thunder.
You could still appreciate like their goodness, though.
Right. Kind of the way Steph and Klay just fired threes up.
Yeah.
Like, Klay's never going to hit 11 threes in a Game 6 anymore. It's not going to happen. He's
Yeah.
probably not going to get the shots to do that.
It's crazy that he just stands there and shoots.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Has he
is-
dribbled this entire postseason?
I don't.
The year?
Fun fact: Klay hasn't put the ball on the ground this entire postseason.
So to that question though, I don't think so. Like I think winning is the most fun you can have, and they're doing it at will. It's so easy for them that's fun. Like coming up together, like building that would have been awesome if just those three guys would have just stuck together.
Yeah.
Fill out the roster. You're gonna win championships that way. But no, you have to bring in somebody and you just completely dominate. And I think that in itself, as a a Warriors player or even a Warriors fan, is like, yeah, we're really good. Watch what we can do.
Yeah.
I mean, that has to be fun to watch.
So, do you think James Harden dribbled more last game than Klay Thompson has all year?
Probably so.
That'd be interesting to look at. Like,
Oh,
how far
that's
back
funny.
do you have to go in Harden's games
Yeah.
for him to have dribbled more times than Klay Thompson has all season long? I bet you
Probably
you
not.
can count on one hand.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
That's scary. Not scary. I mean, it's a little scary,
it's
actually.
terrifying.
It is. It's so scary.
Frightening.
It's so many emotions in my bones. All right, let's move on. So last podcast, we talked about different scenarios that the Thunder could have this offseason regarding, the choices that Paul George and Melo make this summer. Talked about the approach that you would have to make in each scenario. We started, if both PG and Melo stay. PG stays, Melo leaves. PG leaves, Melo stays. Both of them leave, so on and so forth. Today, we're going to give you guys a glimpse as to what the rosters might look like in each one of those scenarios. So this is going to be kind of a follow-up thing to last podcast, and it's going to be fun because each of us has taken a scenario, and we've built a roster around what the Thunder have to work with. Now, the Thunder have, as we said last podcast, 8 guaranteed contracts next season on the books. Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, which a lot of people are, they kind of misspeak when they say it's a player option. It's not exactly a player option. His contract is guaranteed. He has to opt out if he's not going to get paid. So Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, and let me correct myself, 9 guaranteed contracts. Russell Westbrook, Carmelo Anthony, Steven Adams, Robertson, Alex Abrinas, Patrick Patterson, Terrence Ferguson, Dakari Johnson, and Kyle Singler. So before we get started, I know that in each of our scenarios, we all have the same. We have
Like the same core, basically.
the same core of these 7 guys. to make it easy, to simplify these things, let's give you these 7 guys. Russell Westbrook will still be on all of our rosters. We will, I promise you, for you people that are pro-rebuild, we will get into a discussion about a rebuild. But Russell Westbrook will be on all of our rosters. Steven Adams, Andre Robertson, Alex Abrinas, Patrick Patterson, Terrence Ferguson, and Dakari Johnson. All those guys are guaranteed next year. So those guys are going to be on each one of our rosters. So let's move forward. Our first scenario comes from Rob. It's where both Paul George, he stays. I'm guessing he signs the max. Thunder do have his bird rights. And Melo also stays, which is likely regardless of what happens. There's a lot of money here, Rob. What are you going to do with this team? So now,
Doctor,
with those players I gave you, add on Paul George, Melo, you got 9 guys.
Yeah, and so that gives you – so right there, I mean, just if you look at Russ, PG, Melo, and Adams, you're looking at just under $122.5 million.
Whew.
I mean –
that is a lot of coin.
whenever you look at the luxury tax, it's $123 million. So you're already – obviously, this team is going to be over the luxury tax, but you look at those 4 guys put you at that line, which is insane. So that has Paul George at $35 million, and then Melo getting his just under $28 million. But those 4 guys, that's an insane number.
And then if you add those guys to the 7 guys we just talked about,
yeah,
you got 9 guys on the payroll for $151 million. That's not taking into account whatever you're about to do with Jerami Grant, if he's leaving or if he's
Jerami
staying.
Grant, Josh Eustace, you know, that those 2 guys right there.
Raymond Felton.
our daddy,
You don't
thick daddy Raymond.
You're at $151 million. You're $50 million over the salary cap
it's not.
without a backup point guard.
Yeah. So let's talk about the backup point guard.
Let's do it. Let's start there.
And PG wants you to upgrade too, because he said in his exit interview, just really excited about the things we could do to upgrade.
Oh, no.
When he said that, I was like, he either doesn't know how much everyone's making, or
He's about to take a
banking on
discount.
Melo being gone.
So we can still use that MLE, and I think Rondo, maybe he doesn't want to go right back to the Pelicans. You know, he wants to do something a little different.
And maybe the Pelicans are ready to move on and go a little younger as well.
How about some Rondo as a backup point guard?
I'd be for that.
We had talked
I
about
like it.
the MLE at $5,200,000. So I mean, that seems you're already. It feels like if this is the team, if you're bringing back PG, you're bringing back Melo, like you have to go for it.
Yeah, you have to.
And I think that this would be. I mean, Rondo you've seen what he did in the playoffs. Like he's able to get other guys shots, whereas Raymond Felton it's not a strong point.
It wasn't.
Right.
He was a
I totally
scorer.
agree.
He was the shooter that they really needed. Some of these younger guys to step up. That was Felton this past season.
Well, and that's a great point. I just want to highlight that. That's a great point because some of the improvements that needed to happen primarily outside of Melo were on the bench. And it does stand to reason if you get a known facilitator involved. Dude, I love Raymond on the Thunder, but the dude put up a lot of shots and did not. I mean, the assist.
He's not a playmaker.
He's not a playmaker.
Yeah.
And getting somebody like Rondo involved who could get your other guys, I like it.
Yeah, and I think that really does kind of. I hope that would kind of help the bench unit a little bit more than what Felton could do. And so I don't have Felton on this team. And so the last kind of 2 guys there would be Eustace and Grant.
Well, before we get to them, I want to hang on Rondo for a second. Would you worry at all about bringing another ego into that locker room? Because I mean, Rondo's an ego.
So here's what I think. Here's how you kind of sell it, because it really depends on what you expect to do with Melo at that point. Are you steadfast? Hey, we need you off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We've talked a lot about it. Do you lose the locker room in that case? Is Melo doesn't even want to be here in that scenario, doesn't want that role, so he's not really playing. He's not bought in again.
Mm-hmm.
You're wasting another season. I think you could kind of sell that to Rondo that hey, we need you to run
Don't
that
be
bench
like Melo.
unit.
But if you're wasting another season in your mind because you know Melo's not going to commit 100% and you're just not going to get to where you want, are the Thunder going to be willing to go forward with all this money? Or might they just try to get younger?
They could, yeah.
Okay.
Just not in this scenario.
I was like, dude,
This
this
scenario-
is so unfair to Rondo.
Sorry.
To the doctor.
But
This scenario, we're going for it. Somehow, whatever needed to be worked out between Presti and Melo, they get that figured out. They get on the same page, and we're going forward with this, with a chance, with a team that with Raymond Felton instead of Rondo, which still to be seen if that would actually work out, obviously. But like that was a real. Whenever everybody was healthy and everything was going good, I don't think that they were going to win the championship, but. I'm not saying that they didn't have at least a little bit of a shot, right?
Right. And if you're not going to go for it and PG stays, he's probably not going to be too happy of a camper.
Right.
Because, even if Melo stays too, he's going to be like, well, I didn't stay so we could just kill a year. Like,
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Agreed with that.
So,
yeah.
so that's true. And I like, in theory, Rondo sounds nice on this roster. It is interesting can he play with Westbrook on the court at the same time? Because if he can't, that's not enough minutes for Rondo, and he's not going to do it. So you have to promise him minutes with Westbrook, and they have to be effective.
And James St. Patrick from YouTube said, "Y'all drunk if you think Rondo's leaving the Pels," which
I don't know.
I think he's got a pretty good situation there. And it seems to be like the first time he's been with a coach since Doc that he's actually
That's true.
behaved.
And-
So-
I don't know.
but
A
I
second
mean,
round
he
exit-
could leave.
I don't know. I mean, dude, I love what they did to Portland, but I like a second round exit. I don't think that he's just drowned. I mean, you don't know what they're that roster really outperformed what they should have done. Like where everyone had them.
Yeah.
And good for them. And
I
maybe they
would
come
just-
back stronger. But
And you never know if they might want to put the ball in Drew Holiday's hands a little bit more and let
Yeah.
him see what he can do. Get a little younger on that kind of the guy to pair with Drew Holiday. That's the only thing I say.
As good like recency bias, as good as Rondo looked whenever you in the playoffs, where he his assist numbers were just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like Drew Holiday stepped up huge
Yeah.
throughout the end of the regular season and into the playoffs. He was so big. You definitely, if I was the Pelicans, like let's see what else Drew Holiday can get. Like let's continue to feed that and let's let him progress. Not to say that Rondo, doesn't hurts that much, but still, like to your point, yeah. Let's put the ball in Holiday's hands more.
And honestly, when you look at free agents this summer, and the biggest shortage is point guards, backup point guards, specifically what the Thunder are going to be looking at. I mean, look at these. These are going to be the guys that the Thunder are going to be able to choose from outside of Raymond Felton. Aaron Brooks, Jose Calderon, who is pretty sure 50 years old.
Yeah.
Mario Chalmers,
Mario
Devin
Chalmers.
Harris, Jarrett Jack, Ty Lawson, Jameer Nelson, Tony Parker, Rajon Rondo, Derrick Rose, maybe Lance Stevenson if you want to consider him a point guard, which you probably don't. Jason Terry.
No, please.
Slim pickings here, man.
It is
I mean,
slim pickings.
I mean, you didn't have Felton on there, right?
right.
No,
I
he
said
just-
aside in
Oh,
addition
okay.
to Felton,
Yeah,
which
and
Felton's
so-
probably the leader in the clubhouse as far as most likely to return. I would say.
You would think
Yeah.
so.
Not to
rain
burst
on.
your bubble.
But Rondo's going to be on this team.
Well,
In this scenario, we got Rondo.
Yeah.
I think it's also worth noting before we move off the Rondo thing that his surge pretty succinctly correlates with when Boogie went down.
Which is ironic because
You'd
it
think
seems like they
you'd-
brought him in as the
Right.
Boogie Whisperer.
right, and it. I'm
Whispered
not
him
saying-
right onto that bench.
Well, and I'm not saying that he can't
Yeah.
do it with Boogie healthy, but it just I don't know that that's a. I just man, if I'm
It's a clogged
Rondo,
court already.
It's and I just don't know, man. I don't know if I'm Rondo, if I'm banking on. I mean, I think you had lightning in a bottle for a series, and you closed the season strong, but I don't know that he's crazy.
I think
for
that's
leaving them.
I think that's a pretty good point because if Cousins were to stay, it'd be hard to play Rondo, Cousins, and Anthony Davis. Oh my god, just freaking out.
Who's the other guy?
Seizure.
Antonio Daniels.
Antonio Davis. It'd be hard to play all those.
Who's
I
been
mean,
on this podcast before?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's true. It'd be hard to play those guys. It'd be kind of a clogged court a little bit. He might be more likely to stay with the Pelicans if Cousins does leave, which I kind of expect to.
Okay, so Eustace, bird rights for Eustace. I think whenever you already have that much, you're already struggling that much with money. I think it just makes sense. You have bird rights for Eustace, and then
Bring him back on the minimum or close to it.
Yeah, and then also I think Grant is the biggest kind of. I don't know. That's the toughest decision the Thunder would have to make at that point. You're so far over the cap. Like you have his bird rights, so at least you're able to get him. But
It's just going to cost you
At what-
14 times the amount.
Yeah, you have to worry about still being able to pay him enough to where, he's going to want to be here, but also not paying him too much to where, I mean, you're already going to pay so much money to keep him.
Definitely.
Because, the repeater and you're so far over. But I did put him in here.
Kept him, huh?
Yeah, I did, because I think if you're going to kind of, if you want to go for it, I think Grant has value. Grant has value in this league.
I agree.
So how much money we talking?
Well, I did $8 million, and I don't know if that's.
I think that's a fair market.
I think it's, yeah.
I think obviously they would want to get him as cheap as they can.
Sure.
But I don't know that you can really expect to keep him at, like, let's say 6. I don't know that you can realistically expect that he's just going to say, yeah, let's, I'm coming back. Let's do this whenever. Who knows really what he could become, and do you want to just kind of strike if somebody does say, well, hey, we'll give you 9? Like,
Right.
could he really say, well, Thunder only offering me 6, I can maybe get a bigger role somewhere? Like, I think that's difficult.
And his agent's going to be going to the Thunder saying, hey, the Suns offered 11.
Right.
I mean, that's going to happen,
Yeah,
right?
But what if he just stayed for less,
A lot of this comes down to, does he want to stay?
Yeah.
Here's something he said to Adrian Wojnarowski. Where's this at? I definitely think it's a possibility about staying in OKC. I know it's a lot of moving pieces, but I definitely think it's a great possibility, me being there. There's a lot of things they have to figure out, but I think it's a good chance. I don't know what you want to take from that. Not much is said there.
I kind of read into a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah.
It was
Not
about
a
him
bit.
saying, I may or I may not.
Seems like he understands there's a lot of unknowns this summer.
And he's not obviously he knows he's not the top priority, in what they're going to do this offseason. I think he just kind of gets it.
But how high on the priority list is Jerami Grant? Because this is a guy, if you do keep Paul George,
Got to be up there
I
a little
almost
bit.
feel like you have
Yeah.
to keep him. You have to do it. Like, you might eat a lot of money with that luxury tax bill this season if you keep Jerami Grant and Paul George stays, especially if Melo stays. But next year, if Melo's gone, which we all expect, after next year, I should say, if Melo's gone, that helps. There's a lot of relief there, and then paying Jerami Grant isn't so bad. And something we'll probably bring up later. Maybe you look into trading Adams. Maybe you look into get off some of these contracts that are costing you a little more money because Jerami Grant's such a key role piece for this team.
I think you just show that bounce pass alley-oop from PG to Grant to Clay, and you're like, it's
Forgot.
worth it, bro.
Forgot
it's
about
worth
that.
it.
That was fun.
It was fun. I just
So-
wanted to remember something good that happened this year.
So
which is
here's the problem with
Uh-oh.
this roster.
all the money that they're
So
spending.
all of those guys, everybody that we went through, all of the guys that are on guaranteeds, plus you throw in Hustis and Grant, you have Rondo in there, like all of that's 13 guys.
No.
There are only 13 guys that you would have on the roster at that point, and that's $166,735,000 of a payroll.
That is a lot of
Which
money.
I don't remember what Brandon said last season. The Cavs. I don't know if you still have that number. What
I think
they
it was about
140?
136.
Oh, okay. 136.
So, yeah, we're talking
Was it?
30.
I thought you said 140.
40.
No, I think that's right. Whatever. It's about $25
yeah
million
ish
more.
than what they paid.
The
than
most
highest
expensive
team
roster this
last
year.
and like they were made fun of for that last season because of what we're seeing right now. Like whenever you're struggling in the playoffs and you have the highest payroll, I don't know. That's really tough, and that's with 13 guys.
So let me ask you this.
You toss Hamilton on there.
Yeah, you could
like-
do that. Yeah.
If you're looking at this roster, there's not much saving here though.
No,
I mean,
yeah,
you can re-sign Felton instead of getting Rondo. For the minimum, you save $4 million or whatever. You'd let Grant walk and you just sign a guy to a minimum.
Yeah.
Save $6 million there or whatever you want to say. You might save 10 to 20 million max. You might see the Thunder in this scenario that you're talking look to trade Adams.
That's probably the biggest takeaway from this is would they realistically want to eat $167 million just in payroll, not to mention, what they're going to be paying in tax. Like, I think at that point they're at least going to consider, and the only one that you can really talk about there, or that I'm willing to talk about, is Adams.
Mm-hmm.
But
because
that massive of a payroll, they would do that for 1 year and it'd be a huge hit, and then after that, they would still have to be up there though. They're still paying the tax
you're only
later.
you're
just gonna drop off
Melo's,
Melo, yeah.
Yeah, you remove Melo's $28 million, and you're still at 130 whatever it is.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
And so the only reason I bring up the trading Adams thing is because maybe you trade him, and obviously you have to get salary back because you're going to have to match salaries. And so maybe you bring in a guy that expires next year. So you're not only you getting Melo off the book, but you're getting that guy off the book. And now you have Russ and PG. You have some money to build around. That's the only thing. Is this team actually going to be willing to do what you're doing in this scenario, or would that be complete insanity after what we've just watched this past season?
What I hope is that either you're going to do this, or you're going to, like what you said, you're going to set yourself up after next season. Not this, like, kind of, I think we're going to go for it this year, but not really. Like, I don't know. Like, you don't want to be in that gray area. Either decide, let's ride this out for next season and get rid of Melo's contract and we're going to be in a better situation, or go in and just try to better yourself than what you had last year.
So this gray area you speak of sounds a lot like my scenario as a smooth transition out of yours.
Before we transition to yours, let's reveal Rob's team in its entirety. At the point guards, you got Russell Westbrook, Rajon Rondo. Shooting guard, Andre Robertson, Terrence Ferguson, Alex Abrinas. Your small forwards, you got Paul George, Josh Eustace, and Kyle Singler. And your power forwards, you still got Melo, Grant, and Patterson. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
exactly what they just had.
Carmelo Anthony's in
Center,
there.
Adams, and Dakari Johnson. So not much different. Roster looks a lot the same. You probably have an upgraded backup point guard, but not much scoring. And you're not upgrading your scoring on the bench. And you got to hope for guys like Abrinas and Ferguson to get better, which I don't think it's not crazy.
And the point there is that you really I think everybody wants Paul George to come back. With Paul George coming back, Melo, for me, if he's not 100% coming back without Paul George, like with Paul George, I think that's something he's going to come back for. He's going to want to be involved with that. And so with those two guys, you're really tied at that point, like cap-wise. Even more so because they're already in trouble with the cap.
But Presti had to know this was coming.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you have to see this. Like, and even if no one thought Melo was going to not be as good as it would be as bad as he was, frankly. Even if
regardless of the situation, like this money was all still here.
Exactly. And you had to have some sort of inkling saying, like, Melo hasn't been great the past couple years.
Yeah.
He might not be great with us. It might not really work out, right?
Yeah, I feel like they had to have thought that through. I mean, we thought that through, right?
Yeah. Or did they just see the opportunity? I mean, they were trying this for weeks.
Yeah.
They were trying to get Melo to waive the no-trade clause for them for weeks.
I'm sure they were trying to do that for a while, actually.
On to your scenario, Jason.
All right.
Tell us about it.
We got the core, like we talked about. Everybody's there. So Paul George staying. He's getting the max.
So yours, what is your scenario?
So my scenario is basically Paul George stays. Carmelo Anthony is leaving.
And you're going to break it down for us both ways, right? Carmelo opts out one way, and the other way he gets bought out.
No, he's basically getting bought out both ways, but one's he's getting stretched. So,
gotcha.
So they have the opportunity. So if they buy him out, I'm putting him down as getting bought out for $20 million instead of $28 million. Kind of like the Dwayne Wade situation that everybody was talking about. It's a little bit similar. So maybe he'll give us a break if he wants to get out of here and not come off the bench. So basically, you can either pay him the $20 million right now, or you can stretch it out over 3 seasons, which is about like $6.6 million. So I basically ended up keeping Raymond Felton, Josh Eustace, Corey Brewer, and Hamilton all on minimums.
How do you guys feel about keeping Corey Brewer?
I'm not super excited about it.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it off the bench, especially if you don't need to change too much with Paul George coming back.
Yeah.
And having, I know he didn't finish super. I mean, everyone finished horribly, but I actually don't mind him off the bench. I think that extra spark. I think he does really good things. So.
And when you don't have to rely on him as much as you had to at the.
Here's the only counterpoint to that is that whenever you have Robertson coming back, that eats into what Brewer is going to do.
Right.
And then I also wonder, like, how much does that hurt somebody like Abrinas, Terrence Ferguson? Like, you want to make sure that those guys, you need the scoring for sure. Yeah. You're going to hope that those guys are going to be a little more consistent next year. I do wonder, you're going to play Brewer at the 3. Probably a little bit.
And that's kind of actually where I have him.
You're going to be lacking, with small forward. But I still kind of, I don't know. That's the only worry. I definitely want Brewer back. Like,
I would think that in that scenario, if you bring him back and Abrinas is still on the roster, Ferguson's still on the roster, I would think it would be an understanding that, hey, like, we're going to prioritize these younger guys.
Yeah, I would think so. And
Like, we're not going to play Corey Brewer 82 games in the season and just wear him. Like, he's old
yeah,
for an NBA player, right?
right. Yeah, and
Right.
it definitely wouldn't have the same role he had this year. Obviously, Robertson's
Not even
back.
close.
And I mean, Justin had brought up a point earlier this year, like where we had talked about, bringing him back on the minimum. He's like, well, you remember when he was on the bench, he wasn't really that useful, and because his use was
It was like 2 games, though.
yeah, it wasn't very much. But I mean,
bad games.
very bad games.
Yeah.
But I mean, like he was really useful when he was with Russ and with the starters.
Right.
But in this situation, I did something.
Uh-oh.
I traded away somebody we've been trying to get rid of for a bit.
All right.
Old Kyle Singler heading to Atlanta.
Ooh!
Packaged with our
Trade
two.
alert. Do you have an alert?
No, I don't.
That would have been cool though.
Packaged. Boop, boop.
Would have been so good.
That was weak. So packaged with our 2 second-round picks, trading him for Mike Muscala to be a backup center for us, and he can play the 4 as well.
You can shoot a little bit.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, he actually.
Makes $5 million, right? He's got a player option.
Yeah, he's got a
free
player
agent.
option for $5 million, which I would assume he would pick up. He did actually make 48.2% of his corner threes and 91.9% of his free throw attempts this year.
Wow.
Which we could use that.
Yeah.
Get out of town.
Get out of town.
And so you trading one second-round pick here or both?
I assume we'd have to send both to get them to take Kyle, but
Is that worth sending both for Mike
that's
Muscala?
where I was
in
kind
the
of on the
last year of
fence.
a
As
deal?
if, like, do you do both of those? But we really need a backup center with this situation that we're going into.
Is he a backup center? That's the thing. Is he? A
I
backup
think he
center?
could be functional enough.
I don't
but
know. Maybe.
He's kind of
Maybe.
small.
So you have you have Grant in there too, right?
I am bringing Grant back because of his bird rights. I actually put him at $7.5 million, so I wasn't too far off from what you
if you
said.
can get Grant for 7.5, you got to stay.
Yeah.
Got to stay.
And so I doubt we'll be able to get him for that good of a deal, but maybe. Let's see what else. And then I also used our mid-level exception to bring in Ian Clark as a shooting guard. He can shoot really well, and he can handle the ball a little bit. Like, he's a semi-decent defender, so
He can shoot a little bit. He's a bit of a streaky guy.
yeah.
He was on the Warriors, so he can.
But
show us
I
their
felt like
ways.
we're kind of like a little thin when
But the-
relying on Ferguson, like,
The Thunder need shooters.
Yeah,
they
we
need
need it.
guys that can shoot the ball.
and with like what we were
Rob
talking
brought
about with,
brought
like,
in Rondo to shoot.
I don't want shooters. We don't need any shooters on this team. We're all stacked.
well, and like with him on the second unit kind of thing, like I think he could actually do some point guard duty stuff and
I'm not
maybe
opposed.
distribute a little bit better than Ray does.
And he's young-ish,
Yeah.
right? So how old is he?
Yeah, I mean he was
He's 27. So he's not young-ish.
ish.
He's kind of just like in the middle of his career.
Yeah,
That would have been better if he was young.
it would have
You really screwed
made it
that
look better. Way to bring up his age. I was trying to hide that.
Well, so how do you feel about your team? You're sitting at 100. You're also with Rob here, though.
Super amounts of money here. So this is
This
the
is why
thing.
you guys aren't GMs, right? Because look what you've done to the Thunder's favor.
Our hands were tied by Sam Presti.
Yeah, we took
bringing
in a
in Carmelo
bad
Anthony.
situation.
That's true. That's
This
true.
is like that fellow that went to the Nets the other years.
It's like becoming president and taking over a bad
like whoever's
situation.
next.
Yeah.
That's gonna suck. So basically, with the two options, you had to just pay Melo all at once, the $20 million. That would put you a smooth $38 million over the luxury tax at $161 million. It's a familiar number to you, Rob.
Yeah, pretty close.
Which I actually think I prefer to just pay him all at once, because if you don't,
get it
that's
out of the
gonna
way.
tie your hands for the next 3 years.
I think you're right. That's the way to do it.
And if you pay him out over 3 years, you're basically looking at $25 million over the tax still. Like, that's just go ahead and get it over with. Like, rip the Band-Aid off, right?
In dream scenarios, if he just goes ahead and opts out. I mean, obviously, that's the dream scenario
Yeah,
because
right.
That would be the best.
gives you so much cap relief. I mean,
Yeah.
what kind of strategy can you implement as an organization to be like, we got to get this guy to opt out?
That's what I wonder.
They were
Like,
only they were only 18 over the cap.
how much like chicken can you play with Melo here, where you're like, ugh,
Yeah.
like,
Like-
hey, we're gonna make this real awkward. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to be here, and
We
he's
hate
like,
you.
well,
We won't even
geez,
play you this
28 million.
entire year. You're this year's Nick Collison.
You gotta
so.
go like in the middle of the night, pour some like bugs in his house. You know, like he's like, I gotta get out of
Some
Oklahoma
bed
City.
bugs.
Yeah, bed
you
bugs.
just pour them in that, like, you just kind
Got
of
a
open the
box.
door and then just right at the front step.
That's how
Definitely
it
a
works.
bucket that says bugs on it.
Has to be.
I mean, I was gonna say rats, but I feel like that's a little too extreme.
Ooh.
Definitely way less
And-
extreme than bugs.
He's
Yeah.
used to that. He's from New York.
That's true.
Hey.
Good
Sorry
point.
about you.
There's rats everywhere.
So many rats.
And, you know, when you talk about shooters that you want to give the mid-level exception to, which I think is ideal, bring in a shooter that you can give your taxpayer mid-level exception to. Here are some guys that are going to be candidates for that. Luke Babbitt, he's not a mid-level guy. He's a minimum low contract guy. Marco Bellinelli, this guy Rob likes a lot.
Yeah.
What about Davis Bertans from the Spurs?
Yeah, that guy can shoot.
We saw
he
that guy
kicked
shoot
our
a
ass
little
a
bit,
lot.
yeah.
He can shoot a little bit. Bielitsa from the Timberwolves, who's basically just like a fatter Danilo Gallinari.
Less hurt.
You know who I like?
Who?
If you can get
Who do
him,
you like?
if you could get him for the mid-level, which he might demand more, but KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope.
Ooh, contagious.
Oh, God.
For that price, though, he's a little bit of a 3-and-D guy.
Yeah.
He
Talk
can-
about streaky, though. Like,
And
right.
talk about
Extreme.
house arrest.
That's why it won't happen. That's why it won't happen. That's exactly why it won't happen.
It won't
though.
happen.
But he's probably going to be the best on this list.
What about old Glenn Robinson III?
Is he good?
No.
Like that's.
But he won the dunk contest.
What about Seth Curry? You're like, let's get a little Curry magic
No,
on here.
I have him on my list of targets. I do.
Ooh, Joe Harris, Mario Hazonia, or Sonny Leasova.
I don't want that Hazonia fella. I
What
don't
about
like him.
What's Doug McDermott gonna demand in this market? I mean, he's restricted.
He was getting
so.
paid some money.
You know, there's some options out here though. Jody Meeks, who's always hurt. Garrett Temple, but he's got a player option. He's gonna accept it. Nick Young. There you go. He's gonna be a Thunderer. He's gonna go back to Golden State, isn't
yeah,
he?
he is.
Yeah.
So read us your team. Break it down.
So, let's see. We at point guard we got Russell Westbrook, Raymond Felton, Daniel Hamilton. Shooting guard Dre, Ian Clark, Alex Abrinas, Terrence Ferguson. Small forward Paul George, Corey Brewer, Josh Eustace, and then we got Patrick Patterson, Jerami Grant, power forward, and Steven Adams, Mike Muscala, and Dakari Johnson.
I will say, so far with these two rosters, we've been very thin at small forward. Like, with, I don't.
Yeah, for sure.
And a lot of money.
And
A
so much
lot of
money.
money.
A lot over the cap
That's
and tax.
consistent too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll help a little
I
bit. but
hope
it's-
this gets better, guys.
It's not going to be a lot. So
You know, my opinion on that, a counterpoint is that I think that you've got a lot of guys that can flex at the 3.
Yeah.
You can play PG at the 3. You could play Melo at the 3, depending. He's done it before. You could play
Ferguson.
Jerami Grant.
Well,
you could play Ferguson. Here, I still think that we're thinnest at center because when you're talking about, I mean, some of these lineups that we were playing against where the backup big, like Houston specifically, just bullied Patterson. And he's just not that guy. He's not the guy. And we see what Adams is able to do.
Well,
I just still think we're thin.
That scenario, though, you kind of brought up probably the best backup center, you
Sure.
know, in the league, probably with Nene, I would assume.
what?
Yeah, I don't know about Nene.
Yeah, I would. That's what I would say. Yeah, if the, yeah, I would struggle to think of anybody backup center wise that I would take true center over Nene.
I mean, but even when you look
Nerlens?
at
That's a good one.
the Utah series, you know, Patterson playing the 5,
Right.
he's going to get beat up in any scenario. It's
Yeah.
that's not where he's comfortable.
it also becomes like nobody's going to trust Dakari, obviously, and so there is, the point I think that
Kelly Olynyk.
So before, if you look back at this
Aaron
past
Baines.
season, the center was what I was hoping that the Thunder would kind of figure something out on before Robertson got injured. Like, whenever we were talking about what will the Thunder do at the trade deadline, it was like, well,
Yeah, that was
hopefully
kind of
they find up I think that they either need shooting or they need to get a backup center.
Right.
And then it happened that Robertson, got injured and that was all gone.
Right.
So, yeah, that's still going to be the hole going into next year.
Then
No,
all the
I
shooters
agree.
went to the 76ers.
But isn't that almost makes it seem like it's even more important? We talk about Jerami Grant all the time right now because it seems like such an important thing. You saw in that Utah series, he's starting to play center more, and Billy Donovan is starting to say, I'm going to leave Adams on the bench right here. I think we're more effective because when Adams getting switching out on these guards, he's not keeping up. He's getting beat, and he's not switching as well as we thought he was going to be able to, or whatever the case may be.
Well, and when your four
I'm not
guy
saying
is
that.
Melo, I mean, Melo's getting beat. So many examples of when Melo either blew his coverage or missed his, and would look around at like, where's my help?
I watched some more of that today. It
And-
was real
Bro,
bummer.
you're the problem.
That's
Yeah.
and that's why that's kind of brings back to why I think that ultimately one of the hugest problems is that when you have Patterson or a true 4 next to Adams that's gonna bully, that's gonna have his hands up like Patterson as opposed to Melo, you don't necessarily have to worry about them just constantly switching until they get to Adams.
Yeah.
It was like a mathematical equation. I mean, watching how Utah did it, I mean, just literally they would just pass the ball around until inevitably
until Melo's like, huh?
inevitably Melo's gonna not close out or he's gonna not buy. It's like something is gonna happen, and then Adams is gonna have it. He's gonna be at the top of the key for some reason because he's gonna try to close out and help. And I just don't think that happens when you've got a natural 4. So
it seemed like it was just like attrition for the Thunder too as the season went on. In hindsight, it's just like eventually they tried for so long, I think, to make things work, and it was just like eventually they just.
In the end, it didn't even
I
matter.
was about to make that same damn joke.
Bring
Wow.
Billy back though,
I missed that joke. I didn't even know it was there to take. All right, my scenario. Here we go.
Let's get to it.
The most likely scenario, you guys would say? Paul George leaves. Carmelo Anthony
No.
stays.
Yes.
Depression upon
Is it,
us.
though? You want to pay $166 million?
No, that's true, but it's not my money.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
I'm all for paying
Spend
that.
it all.
Please pay them.
I vote yes.
Spend all of the money.
Us three are paying for season tickets here.
Yeah, we're paying
So pay. You
Yeah,
guys
you
can
guys
also
better
pay.
pay.
You guys. All right, so
Yeah,
here we
we'll
go.
pay for it.
The same core 7, like we said: Russell Westbrook, Steven Adams, Andre Robertson, Alex Abrinas, Patrick Patterson, Terrence Ferguson, and Dakari Johnson. First, I'm with Jason here, and I make a trade with Kyle Singler to get him off the books to
I like
give
it.
you a little cap relief, and I'm including both second-round picks this year. I'm a little hesitant to do it because the Thunder can use some young guys, even if they're draft and stash guys, for maybe a potential rebuild, maybe down the road when you lose Russell Westbrook. But I was looking at some guys who have been taken in the 50s and lower.
Not super good.
Not much. Isaiah Thomas. That's it. That are
and what's he doing up these days?
There's a couple guys. I'm being a little dramatic, but there's not
waiting
much.
for Paul George in L.A.
It's
God damn
he's
you.
gone. He's gone though. They're not getting him with. They're
Yeah.
not giving him Isaiah.
I'm JK.
Anyways, so picks 53 and 57 and Singler to the Nets for their second round pick. So you get one in return. Tyre, pick number 40, and Isaiah Whitehead, youngish guy.
Unfortunate last name.
Struggled to crack rotations in his career. I kind of like him for whatever reason. Can shoot the ball, bit of a combo guard, young, the kind of guy that the Thunder tend to take chances on, right? They're like, well,
Yeah.
let's see. Maybe he's been in a situation that hasn't been great for him. Let's see what we can do.
Does he check all of the boxes of not being able to pass, dribble, shoot?
He can shoot. I mean, his numbers would say yes.
Oh, okay.
I checked.
He's
those.
in.
But his reputation, at least coming into the league, was the guy can shoot the ball.
I mean, you're going to get rid of Singler, who has no value
Right.
to this team, and you want a little bit of potential? Like, yeah. I
I'm
mean,
for it.
that's...
Yeah, in this situation, it's giving the Nets 2 picks instead of just their 1. And Singler, who comes off the books next year, that maybe they can, they have cap room anyways. Maybe they just want a little bit more cap room.
You could have got a Capri Sun back, and I would have been cool with it.
All right, next.
I would want more than a Capri Sun.
Next, what flavor?
I didn't.
How
I
about
don't
a
know what
box
they
of
are called.
Capri
I just
Suns?
grab one.
Red.
The red. Yeah. Yes.
Next, I'm really going hard after Tyreek Evans at that mid-level exception. It's going to be a short
Yeah, I
deal.
like it.
It's going to be a short deal, but I think if you're losing Paul George, you need another guy that can handle the ball.
Absolutely.
And Tyreek Evans, I brought in Isaiah Whitehead, who technically is a backup point guard, but I want someone else who can handle the ball.
Yeah.
And Tyreek Evans, I'm afraid you're not going to be able to get him with that money, or he's not going to want to come, because I think what you're going to want to pitch a guy like Tyreek Evans, even if you lose Paul George, is I want you to run the show for the bench, man. And a lot of teams are going to do the same thing to Tyreek Evans this summer, I think.
Another thing we could pitch him: great medical staff. Whenever you get hurt,
Yeah.
What does
it's
that
not.
mean?
We don't actually.
Because he
have
always
him.
gets hurt.
No, I meant
Oh.
the Thunder's part of that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, some...
You're for
Anyways.
sure to get hurt here. is
But
what
I'm
I mean.
gonna say Tyreek Evans joins a team that he sees has more potential,
Oh.
and I'm gonna say the Thunder, in my scenario, settle for Avery Bradley here. No
Okay.
PG.
I
You
like
get
Bradley.
you get a guy that can play a little bit of defense, can handle the ball just a little bit, a guy that can make a shot here and there. It's a guy that I think he can complement Russell Westbrook pretty well.
Yeah.
So that's who I bring in on my mid-level. He might demand more money than that too, but I'm hoping that maybe with that injury, it's almost like an out of sight, out of mind thing. Maybe he won't demand as much money because he hasn't really been relevant recently. Next, I'm going to sign the unwanted Jahlil Okafor
Ooh.
Yeah, I like it.
to the minimum.
I
There we
like
go.
it.
This guy's looking for an opportunity. He's very Cantor-like. Very Cantor-like, not as good right now, but he's
But not as expensive.
not as expensive. Maybe he comes into this scenario, likes his opportunity. You're gonna get to play.
Yeah.
You come in, you rebound. We need you to rebound, and you'll get opportunities to score.
Seems to only breathe like through his mouth. Doesn't have much of a nasal passage. But
Russell Westbrook will set him up. He will get him buckets too. That's how Russell Westbrook, that's,
Plays the basketball.
Yeah, he does, especially with big guys.
Agreed.
So-
Agreed, doctor.
It seems like a Presti move too. The guy was what, 3rd pick in the draft. Presti likes to get these high picks in the draft that almost guys have given up on. Teams have given up on. Deion Waiters.
I just
Enes
don't
Kanter.
know about. You really think you can get him on the minimum?
I think maybe you can.
That's what I'm not so sure.
A 1-year
about.
deal and do like a player option. Like, I mean, he's not getting any playing time with the Nets.
I do
Yeah.
like that though. I mean, I think that would be like low risk, sort of slightly higher reward. If you can actually, if that works out and you can get something out of him, that'd be great.
There's a lot of bigs out there in the free agent market this year, and that's why I think there's a good chance you could get him. Now, maybe someone, because I think the minute someone gives Okafor money, they're going to get criticized.
yeah,
if they
because
give him,
he's gone 2 places where they've both been like, nah.
he needs a
don't
chance
get
to
on the
prove
floor.
himself, and I think the Thunder. I don't know if there's a better fit for him out there.
I just see him coming here and then never playing somehow.
Well, in
Again.
this scenario, I think I'm with Brandon. I think in this scenario, there are minutes abounding
Yeah.
for a guy like Okafor.
So then I re-sign Felton to the minimum. Like
it.
we've been talking about, that point guard market's thin. I don't think the money's going to be there for Rondo. I don't give it to Rondo if I don't have Paul George coming back. I just
Yeah, what's the
I
point?
don't. Yeah, I'd rather just keep Felton, see how it works out, whatever. And then you can still try to work towards a buyout with Melo if he's around, if that's what you want to do. Or you can just kind of test the waters and see how everything goes. So I'm on my cap. I'm at $131 million, so I'm still $30 million over. But I'm only $8 million over the tax.
Sounds better.
$8.5 million over the tax, which obviously that's going to be however, multiply that by whatever. But maybe if you can work towards that, the final number isn't until the end of the season.
Right.
So if you can work towards that buyout for Melo, you can get under that luxury tax. If you can trade away, if you feel like you need to, Andre Robertson, which I don't think any of us want to, but if you have to, there's ways to get under this tax or at least make that bill really low in this scenario. So here's my team. At point guard, Russ, Felton, Isaiah Whitehead. Shooting guard, Avery Bradley, Alex Abrinas, Terrence Ferguson, and Daniel Hamilton. Forgot to mention that. So I'd go ahead and sign him to a deal similar to like what Dakari Johnson did this past year, minimum, really low contract, really low salary. Small forward, Andre Robertson. Jerami Grant, I would also bring back. I have him at $8 million. Isn't that what you had?
Yeah, I had 8.
And I was
So that would do that
we're-
with the bird rights, and I'd probably try to give him like incentive by giving him a player option or something, you know?
So you feel good about $8 million there?
Yeah,
still
I
don't
feel
know
okay
how-
about it. I mean, here
I talked
It's
to
hard
myself.
to gauge that. Like,
Yeah.
here's some. I made a little list here. Here's some competitors for him in the market that are probably going to get more money, and tell me if you guys agree with each one of these. Trevor Ariza, more than
More.
Grant.
Yeah.
He's been on a good team for a while. He's
He'll get more.
Julius Randle more for sure, right?
Yeah, of course.
Derek Favors,
Less.
Really?
I'd
Yeah,
say
I do.
more.
I kind of think more.
I think I don't know that I mean very similar.
You
I
think so?
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
think massively less, but I think he's on the
Less
the-
versatile.
the back nine of his career.
Yeah, if you want
and
to talk upside,
he's-
I
yeah.
mean,
Sure. Okay, Aaron Gordon more, right?
Yeah.
Had a great season this
Yeah.
year despite injuries. Nerlens Noel, that's tough to say.
I would say
I'd
low.
say
You
less.
think so?
Yeah.
Or
It's funny how comparable they
yeah.
are, but they're like two different positions
That's
in a
strange.
weird way. Okay, here's in the same class, and tell me what you guys think about these comparisons. Kyle Anderson. You think Grant's more probably? Kyle Anderson, like it's funny. Anyone that comes from the
strange.
Spurs has like an added value. They're like,
Yeah.
well, he played for them.
yeah.
I mean, they kind of do have an added
Yeah.
value, though, because when you think about, I mean, in the business world, if you're hiring someone and you find out they've had special or specific training, that increases their value.
well, it's
And
like somebody
to
worked at
come up in-
Google, and you're like,
Well, right.
they're going to be
so
good.
to come up in the pop system and to have a whole season with, I mean, even with Duncan not there, I mean, you've got Ginobili and Parker. Well, he's been there 2 years, right?
He can
Is this
also
his
shoot
second year?
a little, can he?
Anderson?
Yeah. Wait, how?
God,
Is he
that's what,
older?
like 4 or 5 years?
Oh,
Yeah, he's been there.
Oh my gosh, I'm thinking of somebody else. I'm thinking. Wait, what's the?
Are you talking about
disaster.
Simmons? Whenever he
No,
went to
I'm thinking of
Orlando?
Justin Anderson.
Oh, no, he's not there.
Mavs.
Yeah, he's not. He's
at the
76ers now.
Yeah,
He
then
was
got
Mavs.
traded. Yeah, he got
Yep.
traded.
Yeah.
Kyle Anderson's big forehead.
Yeah, huge
Big forehead.
Huge.
Yeah. I mean, I have big forehead too, so I understand.
Well, regardless of me not knowing who I'm talking about, he
the
does have
concept
no.
still
He does,
stands.
we want to watch you dig your way out.
he does have added value because he came up in the Spurs model, and if he's been there for 4 years, it does mean that he was there for one of the titles. It means that he was there with Duncan, with Parker, whatever. Are
Definitely.
you kidding me? Like, I would definitely pay extra for that.
Michael Beasley.
No.
Lower. Bertans. Lower.
Lower.
Montrezl Harrell.
Lower.
I say
I think
lower.
it's similar though.
Yeah.
I think it's
He
similar.
kind of had a good season this year, and I think he seems like so much like a Thunder player to me. I would love
I can
him
see that.
on the Thunder.
I would like him as well.
Ilyasova.
I don't know
About
what
the
he's gonna
same.
get.
I think probably about the same.
It's gonna be a shorter deal for
Yeah.
Ilyasova,
Yeah.
but
But I think he gets more money.
really,
He's the old team skipper.
because of what he did for the Sixers this year.
Well, and
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, you're looking for a guy that can stretch it out. I think
Right.
Grant,
Because
not as-
Grant can't shoot. That's the killer for him.
What about Mbamute?
More. I
That's a
think
good
more.
one. Yeah, I would
Well,
say that.
they were saying that it was like a. I mean, there were people that were preaching that it was a death knell for him to be out in the first round, depending on who
Right.
Houston faced.
Turns
so
out it didn't matter.
yeah, well, and also that was still back when they weren't. That was when no one was sure who they were going to play yet. But I mean, that guy's super important. I mean, Jerami Grant's important too. Don't get me wrong, but that guy's a huge part of their.
But he also might only be a huge part of their thing because they're not super deep. You know.
Yeah.
That's true too.
Jabari Parker. No one really knows what to expect out of this guy.
That's so strange.
He's been hurt so much.
I
would-
say
Parker would
lower.
give more. I would
Higher
think.
upside,
think
but
lower?
who's gonna give him more like
Yeah.
on a long-term deal?
Not
That's
a
gonna
long.
be scary.
Yeah,
McDermott,
I'd
Lower.
take. I'd take
I think-
Grant. Yeah.
Grant over.
and then Hazonia, probably Grant for sure, right?
Yeah.
I do not like him.
But just the list that I just read about almost 15 names. There's a lot of
That's a
there's a
lot.
lot of competition out
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
So
And who has money? Six
Nobody.
people.
Hawks, Nets, Mavs, Pacers, Lakers, Sixers.
That's it.
There you go. So and then I would also re-sign Houston to the minimum, getting back to my team. So I feel confident in $8 million to get back to your original question.
Wow, that was a real long.
Let me answer your question with a presentation.
That was a Billy Donovan answer.
I wish
just
you would
gave.
have had a slideshow.
Let me answer your question with a game show.
So that clip
Lower
that
or
Russ
higher?
I got Melo.
Jason, play the music. The music, Jason, play the music.
I got Melo and Pat at power forward, and centers are Adams, Okafor, and Dakari Johnson.
Nice.
Yeah, I think for what it is, like losing Paul George and just kind of trying to not get into a situation where you're going to be paying guys for years to come.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that's a pretty good situation to be in for the Thunder.
Do you think that's a starting lineup of Russ, Avery Bradley, Robertson, Melo, Adams? Even if you buy out Melo and Russ, Bradley, Robertson, Patterson, and Adams, is that a playoff team? Is that a borderline
I
playoff
think
team?
that it's at least borderline, but I
The
think
old
you
8th
would.
seed.
Here's the
Seven.
thing.
That's
Here-
definitely a playoff
here's
team, I
what
think.
you have
You think
to.
so?
Yeah.
You have to
be
consider the fact that the Thunder this year were really not very good.
Yeah.
And that's not obviously there were worse teams, but when you think about on paper what they were and what they ended up being, I mean they're games away from being an 8th seed and games away from not making the playoffs.
5 games left. We were talking like
We were
hey, this
talking,
could
what
go
if we
bad,
don't-
and-
Totally, absolutely agree. So to that point, I think it's tough to look at these new rosters and say, can they be good? Because it's already bad, and it's so for me, like I literally could see the roster that you just created performing far better, at
Yeah.
least in the regular season.
Or at least
I mean, you-
expectations wise, for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I
you
think
have a
you've
little
got
bit of
guys like-
consistency between people coming back
Sure.
and stuff. So
Yeah,
so-
and if you get the scary thing with my scenario when you talk about Avery Bradley coming in and you might sign him to a deal, like if you do, like if you don't make the playoffs, then you're stuck with Avery Bradley, and
Yeah.
you got kind of an old team.
But
So-
then you've got Melo coming off the books the next year, though.
Sure, but you're still old with Patterson, and I mean, I guess you have
No, I'm
Grant,
with you, I'm
Eustace,
with you.
Ferguson, Abrinas, and Whitehead, but like in Okafor. But
It's
these
not a
aren't
lot of
starters.
upside.
These aren't ever going to be starters
Yeah.
in this league. So that's the.
It's kind of like
maybe
all
Ferguson,
your hope
but-
went away, and then you might look at the old.
Well, let's move on to Jacob's scenario where both Paul George and Melo leave. And this is the scary thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say scary, but this is the part where you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
This is to me really exciting. Like this
Yeah.
is this is one of the
It is to me as well.
like Melo is such a downer whenever you look at these numbers and that 28 million. It's so bad. Like if Paul George leaves and Melo's like, hey, you're not gonna let me do what I want to do. I'm out of here anyways. Like this could be extremely good for the Thunder.
So a couple things that I have to preface before I get into this. One, mine is the most open situation and
Yeah,
also
let's-
the most vague situation. So mine is not going to be as succinct as yours.
Sure.
The other thing that I would just preface with is that I firmly believe that Presti's one of his number one goals, almost on the level of retaining Paul George, is getting rid of Melo. I literally think if it's a whiteboard, Melo, like retaining Paul George and getting rid of Melo are almost even. And the reason I think that is that Paul George is going to go where he wants to go. And it's also, I think that Paul George, his destination is also going to be heavily factored by where Melo ends up. And so if Melo ends up with the Thunder, I think Paul George, if you're Paul George, are you coming back to the Thunder with Melo? Because I'm not.
But then you're talking short term, because no one expects Melo to be in a Thunder uniform beyond next season.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So
but
if
you're Paul George, though, do you want to have another year of
it's a
not?
fair question.
So my thoughts are that no matter what, Presti's like you essentially have two options: you rebuild around Westbrook or you get Paul George back. I don't think Melo absolutely shouldn't be a part of either one of those scenarios. So, in my opinion, this is actually probably the second most probable scenario. Just in the fact that I think that if Paul George leaves, I think they will not stop trying to get Melo out.
Oh, I'm with you.
Right, yeah.
I think in any of these scenarios, they're trying to they're trying to see what they can do to move on from Melo.
Right.
But, and this is a whole nother conversation that we've had before, but that's where it falls back on Presti. It's like, dude, you made the trade in the first place.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
So we don't have Melo's salary on the books. We don't have Paul George's salary on the books.
So this is
You got a
Melo
lot of money.
actually opting out. Like
Yes.
he's choosing not to take the money.
So my
he's like, I'm not playing for that team.
There are two options. One is that he opts out because here's the thing. I think that he dealt with a lot of passive aggressive bullshit within the Knicks, where literally Phil Jackson would say things in the media like almost like sending messages through the press. I think that Presti is going to straight up say, no matter what happens next season, you are not a part of our plans, and you really won't be starting. I think that he will say that. And I think Melo, again, it could go either way, but I think Melo wants to be somewhere
He wants to make an impact.
Yeah, and like I know Melo likes
He wants
money
to be
and all
wanted,
that stuff.
baby.
Yeah, but it's like in the grand scheme of things, it's like how do you want to spend the twilight of your career? Do you want to spend the twilight of your career not having fun? You have one kind of a little more fun season in Oklahoma City and then
smiled a
another
couple
bad
times.
one. Like, or do you want to go somewhere where you can play basketball and play your style, your dumbass, like I practice this really awful style of basketball every day. It's my intent to do that.
Side note for your scenario is with all the guaranteed contracts, no Melo, no Paul George, you're sitting at $89 million. You're about $12 million below the cap.
Yep.
That's it. You got about 12.
Just shut it
got
down right there.
$12 million. That's it to work with. But that's something.
Yeah.
Well,
You can for sure re-sign Grant.
Just bring in G League players and run it.
yeah. So, well, I don't resign Eustace. I don't resign, I resign Corey.
So why would you re-sign a veteran in this scenario and not a young guy?
Because this is gonna probably make some. I'm not gonna pretend that millions of people listen to this, but
They do.
That's so many.
Millions.
it makes a lot of Thunder fans mad. But here's the thing: Terrence Ferguson and Josh Eustace have not shown me the promise that I've seen. I think that we are very reactionary as Thunder fans, and I love that because we have a lot of fun. We also have a lot more fun than a lot of fan bases. But the reality is, I haven't seen the flashes of Josh Eustace being the truth. And I haven't seen the flashes of Ferguson being the truth.
Man, he just turned 20 years old, though.
And that's fair, too. That's fair, too. But I'm saying, like, he's super young, and so maybe you do. But what's the time on that? And are there other teams that are willing to take more time with his development that would be able to give us a more immediate...
Well, who are we talking about right now?
Well,
Ferguson.
So are you worried about Russ's window, basically? Is that why you
Not
would
necessarily
need... Because the Thunder at that point, I would think, would have the time, right? Unless you're worried...
Yeah, and you got 3 more years of Ferguson for cheap.
I'm mostly so the way I view Ferguson is I mostly view him as a young asset that could potentially pay off, but I also view him as a young asset that could end up being Cameron Payne or Perry Jones or Jeremy Lamb. And what I think is those guys, there are teams that are willing to take a cheap contract right now, like you mentioned. And when you've got Russell Westbrook, unless you trade him, I don't think you go full rebuild. So you either do the Clippers and you trade Blake Griffin away and you get a bunch of contracts that are short and you get them off and eventually you've got a clean slate, or you intend to rebuild with players that will still win in the immediate future. And that's a lot harder to do, obviously, with a really terrible draft class. But then the very next year, you've got even more cap space. And so, I don't know. I view him as an asset. I view Kyle Singler as an asset. There are so many people dying their cap spaces, and that's $5 million off the books. I think Melo could end up being kind of a trade piece, depending, if he's willing to leave. I think that's a conversation that Pressey has. Tell me where you want to go, and maybe I can still end up getting you what you want, and maybe a team that's just absolutely dying from the tax, maybe and wants to rebuild. Maybe they're able to trade that salary, take on Melo's contract for 1 year, and then all of a sudden they're in a way better place.
Problem is the Thunder are going to have to take salary back.
Yeah.
And they're going to be in the same situation where they're going to want that expiring salary.
Well, and that's true. But here's my thing, and it's like Rob's scenario. I don't think the issue is that the Thunder are unwilling to pay a huge bill. I think the issue is that they're unwilling to pay a huge bill for Melo. And so my thing is,
I think that's
or just something that's
a bunch
bad.
of truth to that.
And so I guess what I'm saying is that I think that there are things on this squad. I don't think that on this squad. I guess what I'm saying is I think that there are things. Well, I'll just go through it, and you guys just tell me.
Okay.
So basically, you keep Russ, you keep Adams, Robertson, Abrinas, Patterson. Ferguson and Kyle Singler. I know this is risky. I look for packages. You've got a historically starved league next season for cap space, and I think that there are teams that are totally out of it. They don't care. They're not looking at like Kyle Singler as being an asset. They're looking to save money because they're in the straits for several seasons. I also look at packaging. I just think, with the salary and, Kyle Singler, Terrence Ferguson, and Dakari Johnson, I think you can find picks, package that with maybe some second rounders. I think you can get some cool things from that. I also think that I also landed at somewhere around the $8 million. I thought 8.5, but I don't know that necessarily moves the needle. I mean, you could just basically say 9. I think the Thunder would pay 9, especially in this situation.
Yeah, that situation. He's very important.
They might pay 10 in that situation. Rob, I want to ask you because I know that upon looking at all these numbers today in preparation for this podcast, you got a little demoralized as far as the Thunder's payroll goes.
Yeah.
How close are the Thunder to a rebuild if something like this happens?
So I don't think you can rebuild with Russ. Like, I don't know how that works.
Right. It's not a rebuild unless Russ is gone.
Yeah. So
I totally agree.
To me, that just doesn't happen. Like, you're just not going to get rid of Russ to go and try and figure.
Why not? Like, so.
No, that's correct.
Why not? Yeah, just why not?
Because he's one of the best players in the league. Like,
Is it because of what he's meant to the city?
No, it's because he's one of the best players in the league, and I think that you can. Some people think you can't win with Russ. I disagree. I think you can win with Russ.
We've seen it.
Yeah.
We've seen that you can. And say all you want about, well, he had Harden and KD. You can win with Russell Westbrook playing a more reckless style of basketball than he even plays now.
That's a good point. Because
this guy can be like an all-time great player. Though. Like you don't
He is an all-time great player.
Like you don't let those people go.
Sure.
And also, how do you sell that to your fans? For
That's-
one, like,
that's my
what do
main
you
angle.
do whenever you trade Russ? Like,
Definitely.
I
There's
don't
no
know.
selling it to your fans
No.
except the ones that are
And like how do you
except the ones that are just entirely reactionary to one season. Is like, man, things are terrible. This sucks.
Yeah, like a bulk of people I think would probably just be like, well, I'm done with that.
The scary thing is,
Unless
though,
they-
is that what if Russell Westbrook isn't happy? Say this scenario happens. He's like, what if he looks in the mirror and it's like, is it me? Is it? I hear what media's saying. I hear what Twitter's saying all the time. Like, you cannot shield yourself from these things, right? And so what if these things happen? He's like,
Russell
I need to
Westbrook's
be
always happy.
I need to be in a different scenario myself.
Then I think that's fine because at that point it'll come out.
If
I
he
think,
requested it, then it's a different
I think
situation.
Trusty will say like he wanted out, and then it makes sense. Here's what I gotta say: when you trade Harden away, when Kevin Durant leaves, whatever, and you've just signed Russell Westbrook to be the face of the Thunder, the one that people remember, whatever, and you trade him away.
You
I mean,
done, son.
I think there are some franchises that can do that because they've been around for a long
Right.
time. But so for example, I thought it was so funny the Clippers this summer trading Blake away, and I thought it was so funny that wasn't like total uproar because they had just pitched him about Hall of Fame and
Like
made
lifetime Clipper thing.
made a freaking maze for him to walk through. Like that Maze guy is pissed, dude.
Maze
He
ended up
spent
in Detroit.
so much time. And so I just think, I don't think there's any way that you trade him. I just don't think. I think optics matter.
it must not have been amazing.
Oh!
No, okay, but here, a point I have though, like even if you do, like you're like, well, this isn't working with Russ. Like there's no guarantee in a rebuild. How long does that take?
Yeah. Sure.
You know, and I think just the fear, all of that together says, no way, you don't get rid of Russ.
Yeah.
You rebuild when you're forced to rebuild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me add something too, just really quickly. In my scenario, so it's like I said, it's less specific than yours, but at the end, without re-signing, if I did my math right,
Low chance.
Questionable.
it is questionable.
It's in a spreadsheet. I don't know.
Well,
Just
Did you type that
Didn't we
sum
have
formula
issues?
incorrectly?
so with the exceptions and with and now I'm nervous to say the number
Just
because if I
say
say
come
the
out with
number,
it.
everyone's gonna be like, okay, so by my math, we have $42 million of cap space
with what?
with me not re-signing Hustis, Dakari. Well, and I'm also some of that is not necessarily space. Some of that is to work with. So $8.4 million to work with in a potential trade with Terrence Singler / Dakari
Gotcha.
package, and then at this point, according to this, I'm 12 under the cap and 34 under the tax.
That's what you'd be working with.
Right. So
before the players. I mean, either way, you're going to be over the cap.
Right,
Like, as
Right,
long
right,
as,
right.
That's
as
happening.
long as you have Russ, Steven Adams, and Andre Robertson on this team, you're probably going to be over the cap. I
Yeah,
mean,
100%.
That's how much Russell Westbrook's contract really eats up this cap.
Which is fine.
Do you think going forward, before we go ahead and wrap this thing up, moving forward, if we're in a situation like this, I mean, you have Steven Adams who's making a whole lot of money in
Yeah.
a situation that might be for a mediocre team.
if you trade Adams,
Can you
trade?
do you trade him? Is that then what? Then what does Russ feel like? I mean,
You
maybe
gotta-
he
Well,
gets
it
a
depends on
go
what,
and
depends on
get
what you
Boogie
get
or
back.
something?
But
yeah. You might get a veteran back that is probably better suited to play with Russell Westbrook at that point when you don't have other guys.
Well, and keep in mind too, one of the things that I was looking at the most is there's a lot of restricted free agents, but you've got a lot of people that don't want to pay more. They're already starving, and I just wonder in my scenario how many of these guys like Yogi Ferrell or some of these restricted. I looked at my list. I was looking like Alfred Payton or Thaddeus Young or Barton or Chandler or.
I'm for Barton.
Barton something.
The problem is you're
interested in.
It's going to be tough under $12 million to get something like that done.
I totally agree, but what I'm saying is that I'm just wondering what the headspace for the Thunder is if they're willing to go and match an offer sheet or maybe even make more trades. Maybe you do move Adams and maybe you do.
Your scenario is impossible. I mean, by then we have no idea what Presti might do.
No, it's true.
Yeah. I mean, how could you? How could you possibly know? Because the roster's so thin and depleted at that point. It's basically what the Thunder started with.
Right,
before the trades and stuff, not counting Oladipo.
It's worse.
Yeah, it's definitely worse.
Because you don't have assets now.
Yeah, you don't have Cantor and you don't have Oladipo. And those contracts looked bad then, but now you're kind of like, you look back and it's revisionist.
Well, good stuff, guys. That was good stuff. No time for Twitter questions, though, because we just went way over.
That's right.
But before we sign off, give me some jazz or something.
Oh, okay. It'll take a second.
Okay. But before we sign off, I think it is our duty to say farewell to Nick Collison for, he gave us a nice career in Oklahoma City. It was nice having him around. Mr. Thunder himself has announced his retirement. So, I hope you have a good retirement. Have fun with your child.
Yeah.
And you got anything to say?
See ya.
Rob is happy.
And I do want to say kudos to Andre Robertson. I'm sure you guys
Oh, man.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Follow us on Twitter at OKC Thunderheads. You can follow Jake over at Jacob is man.
That's right.
Double in. We're at OKC Thunderheads everywhere. Reddit, all those places. Subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, SoundCloud, any of them. Anywhere you can find podcasts, we are there. OKCThunderheads.com. See you guys next week. Thunder up. Yeah.